The Premier League gets underway this weekend, and I, for one, cannot wait. I'm your host, Dan Worth, and I'm here joined by Jack Wright for WhoScored's Premier League preview for the 2025-2026 season. Jack, we'll start off with a simple, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, mate. Thank you very much indeed. I hope you're well. You sound very excited.
I'm very excited. Obviously, the EFL action got underway in the Championship last weekend and League One and League Two the weekend before. So I've dipped my toe into a bit of football. Two results that have not gone my team Reading's way. So I'm looking forward to this Premier League season coming back as a bit of a distraction if Reading aren't going to be as good as I thought they might be this season. And I'm assuming you're as excited as me.
Oh, of course, yeah. I can't wait. Like, the big league, isn't it? Like, it's the one that everyone around the world really does hone in on, ready for it to come back. And the great news to start the weekend or start the Premier League season, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's a 4-day extravaganza to kick us off, and we're back right into it. So yeah, I can't wait at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this season has got more games live on TV than any Premier League season that's gone before it, which for someone who doesn't really go to Premier League games that much, that's great news for me, as can watch as much as possible. And I think one of the really exciting things about the Premier League this season, and then to be fair, it happens most seasons, is the kind of talent that the Premier League attracts. Like there's been some big signings, which obviously we'll come on to, and I won't spoil it all at the start, but big signings made across a lot of teams in the Premier League, which will only enhance the quality. So yeah, enough about how excited I am. Let's get into the nitty gritty. We'll start off at the very top then. I want to know who you think is going to win the 2025-2026 Premier League.
I've got to have to go for Liverpool, mate. I really am. This time last year, I certainly weren't putting them forward. They were quite big underdogs, really, to be fair, as far as the bookmakers were concerned, which is normally a decent kind of template as to what to expect going forward. But obviously, Arne Slot did an incredible job. Pretty much had the title wrapped up, it seemed, by Christmas. There never really was too much competition. And initially, I think we were waiting for Liverpool to fall away. And it just did not happen. They were relentless, really, throughout the campaign, only until the last few weeks of the season when they'd already clinched the title did they kind of slip out of gear and cruise over the line in neutral. Players were off on holiday, weren't they, flying in, as you've pointed out before, for the final game. So it was a bit of a mad situation, but they made it look rather easy. If they hadn't strengthened, then I think possibly I would have been looking at the other sides underneath them to have closed that gap a little bit, as a few of them underperformed, and I thought they might be a bit stronger this season. But I think it was Sir Alex Ferguson, the great man himself, that said that the time to strengthen is when you're in a position of power, and Liverpool have absolutely taken that mantle, haven't they? Yes, lost a couple of players, but I think they've replaced them really, really well, i.e. Trent, bringing Frimpong in. They've already got Conor Bradley there as well, so real good blend down that right-hand side, depending on what they need. And, of course, there's some marquee signings, the likes of Florian Wirtz, who I can't wait to see in the Premier League. I think you've alluded to that already. Ripped it up in Bundesliga the last 2 or 3 seasons, been sensational, and has also seemingly hit the ground running in pre-season. So can't wait to see him when the action starts proper. And of course, there's talk that they're still going to strengthen further with Isak. But I think from where they are, they've got stronger than this time last season. So I think they'll probably stay a similar distance ahead of the rest. Because I think they did have a bit more gears to go into as well. And of course, look, the tragic loss of Diogo Jota over the summer also will strengthen that, I think, as well, because there's no club that can galvanise its support, the community and the team more than Liverpool, really. And as much as they're going to use that, but I just think the players are going to be that little bit extra, that extra 5 or 10% more determined to get the results, get over the line, and do it for him, basically. So more power to their elbow.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting off the show with one big agreement, I think, because I'm with Liverpool as well for the title win. For pretty much the exact same reasons as you said. I think they're stronger than they were last season, which, I mean, they surprised me last season. I thought they'd be okay, but I thought Slot coming in, he might struggle to hit the ground running, but, I mean, he did a great job. And without really splashing any cash. I think Chiesa might have been the only big signing they made last season. So then to go and spend quite nicely this summer, I mean, I think this squad is super excited. And as you mentioned with Isak, it doesn't even look like they're done. I've seen rumours today that they might sign Mark Gay, which again is a player that I'm massively fond of. But you're talking about a team that have the league's top scorer last season in Mo Salah, the league's top assister last season in Mo Salah. Then they're adding the likes of, if they do, obviously, Isak, who was the second top scorer, Florian Wirtz, who was, I think, the top assister in the Bundesliga last season. Like it's pretty frightening. So, yeah,
you got to say they've got the best goalkeeper for me, pound for pound goalkeeper in the Premier League in Alisson. A central defender in Virgil van Dijk. Yeah, another year older, but I think still a Rolls Royce of a defender, to coin the cliche. But you look through that spine and the side, and I don't think there's any team that can match that, to be fair, with the extras they've got around it to supplement that as well. Decent strength in depth, and as I say, they're making some serious moves. As I say, they're not just padding out an already formidable squad. They're buying serious talent, and there was talk of Konate going, and more or less immediately. Then it seemed like they're now in discussions with Gay, as you talked about there. To you'd suggest that would be certainly not a downgrade, is it? Certainly not.
No, not at all. And obviously has a lot more longevity with Gay being younger than Konate. But yeah, I think Liverpool improve on their points tally of last season. Obviously, you can't really improve on winning the league. They can just do that again. But I think they get more points this season. I think they'd probably go further in the Champions League. I'm just massively positive about Liverpool, which, to be fair, is probably the first time in my life I've actually said those words. But Liverpool, the title winners for both Jack and I. Let's talk then on the team that miss out, the team that comes second. Who are your runners-up in this coming season, Jack?
Well, it seems they're the kind of perennial bridesmaids, isn't it? I'm going to go with Arsenal. They've kind of made that second spot their own over the last few years, and I think they might well have to settle for that again this time round. As I said during the talk about Liverpool there, I feel that if Liverpool had stood still or potentially got weaker, then Arsenal have strengthened. A couple of very nice positions that they've sort of needed. They've done some decent business, and I thought they would definitely close the gap. I think they'll do better than last season, although that wasn't a terrible campaign. They just drew too many games. And I think they've got a little bit of cutting edge, of course, in the signing of Gyökeres, that we've seen his numbers in Portugal for Sporting. He's unlikely to repeat those numbers, let's be honest about it. But sometimes with Arsenal would have kind of struggled against a low block, struggled against those sides that just sit in deep. They need someone that maybe can make the difference. And I think looking at his record against the lesser lights in Portugal, he does seem to always score against those kind of sides. So that's a boost for him. Will he be the difference maker when it comes to the top of the table clashes? Maybe not. The jury's out. We'll have to see how that one pans out. But I think Zubimendi's a brilliant signing in that holding midfield role, which is going to take the handbrake off Declan Rice, see him moving further forward. And I think we've seen that in his game. That is a really exciting part that we should be able to see a lot more of this time round. Defensively, they had quite a few injuries last season, but still posted the best defensive record in the Premier League for the second season running. So I expect that to be another thing that they'll be strong at. Of course, that central defensive partnership is vital for them. Again, they've also got a top goalkeeper in David Raya. But I said the likes of Ben White being injured as well. Expect him to come back. That link up he has with Saka down that right hand side is exceptional. So yeah, I think there's lots to like about Arsenal, but I just feel that they will fall just short when it comes down to trying to reel Liverpool in, because that 10-point gap is not easy to do, especially when you can consider that Liverpool probably gave away a few points towards the end of the season as well. So yeah, I think they might close the gap, but I don't think they can overcome it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you that I don't think they'll overcome it, but I definitely disagree with you that they'll come second. I think there's going to be an even bigger drop off for Arsenal.
Wow.
I mean, I'll tell you where I think they're going to come when we touch upon those questions later on. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying about Zubimendi. I think that's quite a shrewd signing, but I'm not massively taken back by the signing of Gyökeres and also the incoming of Madueke. I think in pre-season, which I know you have to take with a bit of a pinch of salt. I mean, I'm not impressed with Madueke one bit. And Gyökeres, I'm slightly concerned that the 39 goals he scored in Liga Portugal, are kind of pulling the wool over Premier League fans' eyes a little bit, because I mean, you alluded to it. There's no way he reaches that level, and I'm concerned that when all the pressure is going to be on him to basically provide the lion's share of Arsenal's goals, maybe he won't quite have as much joy in the Premier League, which, let's be honest, is a stronger league than the one in Portugal. And yeah, I don't know. I think if they're not scoring goals,
I think he needs to hit the ground running, because I think he has got high levels of confidence at the moment. You would do, having scored the goals. He's got a big move back into the Premier League. Obviously, he was let go by Brighton a few seasons ago, so they don't make too many mistakes in that respect. Wasn't like sensational. He was very good in the Championship, but he wasn't sensational. He's not like, when you look at Alexander Mitrovic, for example, those kind of numbers where he was posted, he didn't get to that level. And yes, he has been brilliant in Portugal, but a lot of penalties there. And as I mentioned before, I think where he's a large percentage of those goals come against the sides in the bottom half of the table. So I get where you're coming from, but he is confident at the moment. He's obviously getting talked up by Arteta. The crucial thing for him to do is score a couple of goals in his first 5 or 6 games to kind of at least take that pressure off. The longer he waits for his first goal, then I'm with you. I can see it being becoming a kind of Højlund scenario at Manchester United, where the pressure builds and he starts snatching at those chances that he would kind of take with his eyes closed in Portugal.
Yeah, I can't avoid the comparisons with him coming to Arsenal with Darwin Núñez going to Liverpool. Like someone having a great season in League of Portugal and coming over and realising, this is actually a slightly different league and not quite finding their feet from the off. And I'm not suggesting he struggles probably as much as Darwin Núñez, but yeah, I went to see Benfica when Núñez was in that final season and he was unbelievable. And I have since been so surprised that I saw that player then, because I've not seen that since. So, I mean, the key for Arsenal is if Gyökeres can, as you say, get firing from the off, like absolutely, they can be looking towards the top of this table. And if he's providing loads of goals that they did sort of miss out on a little bit last season, other than the goals from set pieces, then maybe that is the missing piece of the puzzle, and Arteta finally cracks this Premier League puzzle that he hasn't been able to yet. But if he doesn't, oh god, I do worry a little bit for Arsenal. So yeah, I haven't got them in second. I'm going for Manchester City in second place. Pep's the master, and it's probably going to be his last go at this. He was, yeah. A very disappointing season for Manchester City last season, and Pep's sort of not hidden behind that. He's openly admitted throughout the season and at the end that it was very underwhelming for Manchester City. Although, I mean, they have set the bar quite high for themselves, winning the previous 3 in a row. So, second place is not too bad. Or was it third? They came third in the end, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I think, given that it's his last go, I think that they're going to improve on last season. I don't know, given what we've already said about Liverpool, if they'll have enough firepower to finish above Liverpool, but I do think that they'll have enough to finish in second. I like the players they've brought in. I like Ryan Cherki. I like Ait-Nouri. I think that's a player that can come in, and we've used the term hit the ground running about 500 times already in this show, but with Premier League experience, he can definitely do that. And I just think, yeah, his last hurrah, they'll probably be the team that can put Liverpool under the most pressure for the title. As I say, I don't think they will pass Liverpool, but I think it's second place for Manchester City.
Even with the points deduction?
Even with the point, yeah. Well, then that is a very different story.
Yeah, we'll wait and see on that one. That's something we can't quite control.
If that is the case, then yeah, it would be quite a feat. Well, I guess how many points, but some of the rumoured points deductions, I think they might struggle to overcome. I mean, I can't imagine they do something too drastic to Man City, but we'll have to see. I have no idea. Top 4 then. I'll let you go first. Who are your other 2 that are making up the top 4?
So I've got Chelsea in third, and I've got Manchester City in fourth. That's how I go. Yeah. So as you've talked about Manchester City, I'll say the reason why I've got them in the fourth spot. I think there is still a transition, and like it was by that very, very high standards a terrible campaign last season. Certainly the middle part of it, they actually started quite well, didn't they? Normally they're relatively slow starters, and they build into the season, and they just go into overdrive. And when they started quite well, I thought, this is dangerous. I was actually fancying Arsenal last season, and I thought, wow, Man City started well. It's ominous for the rest of the campaign, but then they kind of hit a wall, which carried on going, didn't it? It seemed to last a long, long while, and obviously it was very well publicised how that struggles unfolded. But ultimately, they still had the opportunity to go away with a trophy at the end of the season. And the one thing that concerned me, I'd say, about City was that throughout this era of dominance, they've always been able to win those important games, win those big games, go and get their hands on a trophy or two or three. And they had that opportunity against Crystal Palace, and it didn't happen. They were outplayed in the final. They deservedly lost, and obviously ended the season empty-handed. Look, one-off game can happen, but again, I think that concern for me there was then amplified when it went to the Club World Cup, a tournament that probably was sort of ridiculed a little bit initially, but I thought it was an important tournament for Manchester City, and I think that Pep wanted to make it as a bit of a statement that they'd go at least very deep into that, if not going on and win it. So for them to go out in the round of 16 against Al Hilal, not one of the fancied sides certainly, and conceding plenty of goals in the process, was another red flag for me. And I just feel that kind of aura that they've had over the years, that invincibility to a certain degree, has just waned. And sometimes you get that situation where winning becomes a habit, and they just go into games expecting to win because they've been there and they've done it so many times. And they've now got to that point where, I wouldn't say losing is becoming a habit, certainly not that state, but where it's certainly must be in the back of their minds that they've fallen short in a few big games recently. So I've got them falling short here. So there's a couple of nice signings, but I still think it is a little bit of a transitional period. I still think they look a little bit suspect defensively. Obviously, there's talk of Donnarumma coming in now, which would certainly improve the goalkeeping department, although James Trafford must be wondering what the hell's going on here before he goes out on loan again next season, and then they sign him back again in 2030, whenever it is. But Chelsea for me, third. Very impressed with him in that Club World Cup. A really solid campaign last season. I thought Maresca dealt with being under pressure for the majority of it really, really well. Yes, they buy lots of players, but they've sold a good few as well. You've talked about Madueke as well. I think that's a decent sale. And so they brought some decent talent in, as you'd expect, as they do. But also, I think they've got plan B now as well, with the likes of Delap coming into the side. They've got João Pedro coming in, and he's got that ability to stretch defenses left, right, and centre. Delap has got that more physical presence. So if they do need to go a bit more direct, if they do want to mix it a little bit, they can do. Defensively, again, would be where I'd be worried about them a bit, especially with a couple of injuries that they've had now. Obviously, they're going to look to strengthen that area. I just feel that that will probably be the thing that will keep them just out of that top two or that title race. They pushed Liverpool probably as much as anyone in the early stages of the season, then fell away a little bit mid-season, didn't they? But they're a young side. They've got the potential in there. Another season for the likes of Cole Palmer. I think, as you know, I know you're a massive fan of his, as most people are. And I think Maresca, who impressed me in that final against PSG in getting to grips with how they could beat them, I think he's realised that he has to build that side around Palmer, and for them, that makes Chelsea a stronger force. So them in third for me.
Yep, I absolutely agree with you with Chelsea in third. I really fancy Chelsea this season. I think they're going to be much better than last season. I think, as you've already mentioned, I think the signings they've made have been positive and not only improved their starting 11, but also improved the general squad quality of squad depth. In bringing in players like Esteval, who I think was the highest rated player in Brazil last season. Now, obviously, he's a bit of an unknown and quite young, but given the amount of players that Chelsea have, he can probably take his time to bed in, and will
it's
be
nice
an
to have
exciting...
that wild card. You're right there. Yeah, having
Absolutely.
that wild card that can come and do it every now and again, take in and out of the side.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, Cole Palmer, I think he's so good, and I think he's only going to get better, in my opinion. And I think this is his season now to really. I mean, he stepped up before. I'm making it sound like he hasn't, but to really step up and spearhead this Chelsea team into more trophies and maybe even push for the title. And with Maresca too, like I was actually quite skeptical of him when he joined Chelsea from Leicester last season. I thought maybe he wasn't the right man for the job based on winning the championship with Leicester, but he's proved me wrong. I think he was pretty solid last season. And as you say, with the Club World Cup stuff, I was quite impressed with how he managed that whole tournament. And obviously, they won the Conference League, they won the Club World Cup, so they're full of confidence. Their fans are going to be chanting, "We're the best team in the world" for the next this season at least, and I think it lasts 4 seasons, doesn't it, with the Club World Cup? So Stamford Bridge will probably be rocking throughout the season with positive sentiment, which can only benefit the players. So yeah, I'm expecting a really positive season for Chelsea here, and an improvement on last season, maybe even more trophies. I'm not necessarily suggesting they win the Prem, but I see no reason why they can't go deep in both the domestic cups and even in Europe. So yeah, I think a positive season for Chelsea incoming. I mentioned Europe then. We'll talk about 5th and 6th, or as what I've got written down as the European spots. I know that doesn't really exist anymore because it seems like every Premier League team just makes Europe. But we'll go for 5 and 6. Who have we got 5th and 6th?
Well, I assume you've gone Arsenal 4th. You didn't actually mention that, but
I've gone Arsenal 4th, but I've covered that off.
Okay. I didn't know how bad. I didn't know you said. I wasn't sure how down on them you were.
No, not that down. I mean, like they haven't really downgraded in any positions. If anything, they probably have upgraded a bit. So I think 4th, they'd consider 4th a pretty disappointing season, as I'm predicting. It's not a massive drop off like Spurs and United last season. It's just a minor drop off. Still 5 Champions League, back to their old sort of landing spot in 4th place for Arsenal.
Okay, well, you mentioned 5th and 6th. I've gone for Aston Villa in 5th.
Okay, nice.
And I've gone for Brighton in 6th.
Wow. Okay. Well, I've got Villa in 5th, but you go for Villa. Go on. You go for it.
Not much to say. I think what I like about Villa this summer, I guess, has been the stability there. There's been obviously talk. There's like Emi Martinez still at the club. Whether that remains, obviously, we've got a couple of weeks left of the transfer window yet. But it was like he was waving goodbye, wasn't it, at the end of last season? But he's still there, and they've also strengthened that goalkeeping department as well. So, be interested to see how that one does play out in the early stages of the season. Ollie Watkins, I think, is massive that they've kept him. You know, again, there's talk of maybe Arsenal, maybe Manchester United, maybe others as well, securing his services. But look, a real consistent goal scorer. If you've got a consistent goal scorer in the Premier League and he's hit double figures every single season for Aston Villa in the Premier League, then that's a large way towards making sure you're going to be competing at the top end of the table. And Unai Emery, for me, I love Unai Emery as a manager. I love watching him on the sidelines. And I just think he's a very shrewd operator, and to keep him there, yes, he's got the opportunity to rekindle his love affair with the Europa League this season, but that takes a little bit of pressure off as well as far as that Champions League campaign last season was concerned. Yes, financially a little bit of a blow, but you know they've got some real top talent there. And obviously, there's talk that they're selling Ramsey, which would be a loss. But by the sounds of the money they're talking about getting for him, that may be recouped. Tielemans as well, I saw being linked with a move today, but again, that's all paper talk and conjecture. We'll have to wait and see. As it stands right now, they've got a really, really strong squad, and a player I've got a very, very strong affinity with. It's been great to see come back fit over the close season. That's Emi Buendia. And if Buendia does remain fit and show what I know he can show, it was absolutely heartbreaking that he had that serious injury more or less as soon as joining Villa. So he was out for the entirety of last season. Obviously, he ended up going on loan to Leverkusen in the end. But it's been interesting to see him in pre-season scoring goals, scored a lovely free kick, scored another goal as well, but also his link up with Watkins, I think, could be crucial to them. And I think that could be worth another 5 or 6 goals to Watkins. And that, again, would obviously push Villa further up. The back end of last season, the second half of last season, they were superb. Their home record is phenomenal. And I just think they've got all the attributes. Yes, they lost Rashford, who was good for them at the second half of last season. But I think that they've got the ability around that to be, say, a stable force where there's other uncertainty around the other sides, kind of jostling for those positions. And I think they could make a challenge for the top four, but again, ultimately just fall short and end up in fifth.
Yeah, I like Aston Villa in fifth too. Again, for basically all of the reasons that you said. Ollie Watkins has scored in every pre-season fixture so far. I think it was like 5 in a row, so that's quite good going coming into the season. Where you've also had bids from the big teams that have not gone through, so he must be feeling pretty confident, which is exactly how you want your main man to be feeling really going into the season. Got quite a tough game to kick things off with against Newcastle. But if he can get on the score sheet there, then that's a great start. And yeah, I'm just a massive fan of Unai Emery. I think he is one of the great European coaches. And most impressive for me is Aston Villa's home form over the last 2 seasons. Like, they've been right up there for points gained at home. And I think Villa Park is a bit of a fortress, and I see no reason why it won't be again this season. And if they can keep that up, then I think fifth is very achievable for them. They're obviously a big club. They've got a great fan base. So, yeah, I think fifth for Aston Villa. And you've got Brighton in sixth. That's a slight surprise to me. Tell me why.
Well, they just fell short last season, and every single side above them qualify for Europe. You alluded to it earlier that half the league was in Europe, is in Europe this season. Well, every side that finished above Brighton last time is in Europe, and a couple that finished below them are in Europe as well. So I just feel that they have got that focus on finishing as high as possible, and I think they can make the top 6. Again, due to the uncertainty with 2 or 3 of the clubs that will be challenging them for that. Now, you look at realistically who is around them. Yeah, you could obviously mention another side, so I won't go into the details of who else, but they're just obviously a well-run club. They always seem to be able to find that next superstar. You know, you look in the middle of the park, they've had like Basuma, then Casado, and then they always find a replacement left back. You look back to when Cucurella went, it's like, oh, that's a massive loss for them. Well, they then brought in Pervis Estupiñán, who was then superb. They've now sold Estupiñán, they've brought in De Kuyper, and I think that is a brilliant signing. You look at João Pedro, yes, the intangibles, you can't quite work, what he brings to the side in build-up, etc. But I'm sure the data guys at Brighton will have that exactly nailed and look to have replaced that. But purely and simply on the goal situation, he scored 5 open play goals last season. So they've got big money for a player that contributed as many goals from open play as Jack Hinchell would for them. And Ruter for them, who's had a few injuries, and there was a few players that scored more in open play. So, a large part of his goals were penalties. Move them on to a Danny Welbeck or a Matoma or another, and that should well be covered. So I think that they know what they're doing. They've got no distractions. They can focus on getting a high position in the Premier League and possibly going deep into one of the cup competitions. And obviously got a very young manager who would have learned from his time in the Premier League now and will look to kick on, as will much of their players. And I like their business as well in the transfer market. So that's why I'm very, very positive about Brighton.
Nice. I mean, that'll be music to Brighton's fans. I'm not quite as positive because
it's about time I please some set of supporters. It's normally the other way around.
I'm listening to this. I'm not quite as positive on them. I do think losing João Pedro, despite obviously the only five open play goals, will be quite a big hit to them. And I do worry if they have to put too much weight on Danny Welbeck being the provider of a lot of their goals. Might not be the smartest. I'm going for Tottenham, which is also might not be the smartest, in 6th. Deathly silence. I'm quite impressed by Tottenham. I mean, I'm quite impressed by the business that Tottenham have done. Getting João Palhinha in the middle of the park in the previous 2 seasons when he was at Fulham, he was the top tackler in the league for both. I think he's a great signing, really, for any Premier League team, but particularly for Tottenham. I think he'll steady up that ship, and he'll be great in the middle of the park. I like Kudus. I think he was all right at West Ham. He looks like he can really take the game to teams. Matthias Tell, they signed. He was all right for them last season, but it's good for squad depth. Kevin Danso, again, he looks okay. I don't know. I just feel like this could be the season. I mean, 6th for Spurs. They're they're probably listening to this thinking, "Oh, I hope we can get 6th and maybe even more." But for me, I think that's quite a big achievement for Tottenham. I think Thomas Frank coming in, this is sort of his first chance at a team that have a chance of trophies. Sorry, Brentford fans. And I think he'll do. I think 6th. I think they should be pretty chuffed if they can get in the top 6.
Wow, yeah, massive outtake, obviously from last season. So
yeah, well, yeah. Well, I mean, they might need to lose fewer games this season because I think they lost 22 games in the Premier League.
I think they will need to do that. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And as I say, like João Palhinha, I love that guy. I think
it's a great pickup. Yeah.
So I'll be watching that with heavy interest. Now, there's one team that we haven't spoken about in the top 6 that I'm sure people who are listening will want to hear our opinions on, and that is Ruben Amorim's Manchester United. Now, you're not giving them in the top 6, neither am I. Is that because they're 7th or are they further down?
Where have I got them? I've got them 9th. So 9th. Yeah. Well, it is, isn't it? Like, and I think I've seen top 4 mentioned, top 5 mentioned, and I'm thinking, I know you've gone very bullish on Tottenham there, and that would be a similar kind of redemption story. Do I think Manchester United have changed enough at this moment in time to go from, gain 10 places? No, I don't. And I think the sides that we've talked about already, for me to be top 6, obviously still got Newcastle in the mix. I think Tottenham will have an improved season this season, a much improved season. And then you've got those really solid contenders around the middle of the table that will fill those places, the likes of Bournemouth and Palace and maybe Everton as well, with a couple of their siders that they've made at this moment. So that's starting to improve in my ratings as they go along as well. So I just feel that, they've bought a couple of players in. We've got to wait to see what happens with Sesko. Cunha, Mbeumo, were they superstars for those specific clubs, or are they just going to be general superstars? We've seen Cunha at some fairly decent sized clubs in the past, and it's not really worked out for him. So the jury's out. So for me, more questions than answers, and therefore I've got them around the middle of the pack. I think sometimes they might well look sensational this season, and I think other times they look abysmal. And there's enough of the stuff that I didn't like about them last season they've still got there. They've obviously tried to get a new goalkeeper in. As it stands at time recording, that remains the same. Defensively, still a few questions, and in the middle of the park as well. We'll have to see how that goes. And of course, with the signings they've made, that means they're going to drop arguably their star player, Bruno Fernandes, into a deeper position. Will that be beneficial or not? Again, as I said, there's more questions than answers for me. So mid-table, for me, 9th.
Yeah, that's fair. I've got them in 8th, so not too dissimilar.
Yeah.
The one thing that's a slight positive, I think, for Man United fans is the amount of goals that they've brought in. I think Cunha and Mbeumo scored 35 goals last season in the Prem. So if they can do that or even get close to that this season, that will be a massive improvement on the Manchester United team where Bruno Fernandes was their top scorer, I think, with 8 or 9 goals last season in the Prem.
Yeah.
Really,
you already know my counter argument to that, though, don't you, Dan?
Go on, tell me.
We've done a show previously when I've said this, the fact that Cunha and Mbeumo were 2 of the top 3 for overperformance to XG for their goals output last season. And of course, their goals, they were on penalties. They can't both take them. And Bruno Fernandes will likely have them anyway. So I think, yes, I get what you're saying. Of course I do. But that would be my warning shot. Not saying they're not going to, but that would be my warning shot, is that they massively overperformed last season and had the benefit of being on penalties as well. So we'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, I just had to temper your enthusiasm.
Well, United might be all right if they get to penalty shootouts in the FA Cup or something. They've got plenty to choose from there.
Well, they have there. Yeah, it's a way.
And obviously, again, like you're spot on with the more questions than answers. Like Sesko could be unreal, could not be. It could be another Højlund, Xerxes, where they promise a lot and don't really provide anything so far. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Højlund. It looks like he's on the way out, but maybe not. I'm not sure.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to hear from Man United fans. I can't believe I'm asking for that, but normally I probably don't need the invite. But I think I'm genuinely curious. I think from what I can see, they seem very bullish about the season. They seem very confident about the season. Maybe I'm just only hearing the most vocal ones saying that, and there is a more of a cautious optimism than anything else. But I'd be interested to see where the Man United fans pitch themselves this season and what would be considered a success for them. Like, generally speaking, it's top four or a bit of a failure, isn't it? So it'd be interesting to see what they think good looks like for this season.
Yeah, it is interesting because, as we both mentioned, like finishing 8th or 9th is a huge improvement on last season. Like, I'm not necessarily saying that United fans should be happy with that or consider that a success, but like it is a success. Like, if they can finish that much higher than they did last season, it's an improvement. But obviously, Amarim's not aiming for that. He's aiming way above it. I also wanted to pick up on your midfield question or point. Sorry, if they sign Carlos Baleba, that will massively improve their midfield, I think. Obviously,
yeah,
UBC, but that could be a great signing for Man United and yeah, definitely fill some of the gaps which I feel are a bit void at the moment.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Brighton generally only sell when they're ready to sell, and they generally sell at a premium. And we've seen, obviously, in the past that Man United tend to pay a bit of a premium as well for their signings. So as we get towards the end of the window, have Brighton got a succession plan in place? So, from what I've heard, they've got someone they like, but maybe not quite yet is ready to make that step up. So it might be a season too early for them to sell. And as I say, they generally kind of call the shots and plan strategically when they're going to be releasing these players for, say, for big money. But money does talk. So if they do come in with a substantial offer, then it's likely to happen. So yeah, that would be a big signing for them. They need something like that in the middle of the park for me.
For sure. Couldn't agree more. Right, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom now. I want your relegated 3 and a little reasoning.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start at the very bottom. I'm going to go with Burnley to finish bottom. Look, first and foremost, we know Championship to Premier League, an absolute chasm to try and bridge. We saw Burnley attempt that a couple of seasons ago under Vincent Kompany, spectacularly fail. Obviously stuck rigid to his ideas and his principles. We've got a different approach this time around from Scott Parker. They defended their way to the promotion last season. 100 points cannot be undersold in any stretch of the imagination. Built massively on that incredible defense. 16 goals conceded is just phenomenal, mind-blowing. They massively overperformed that, though, didn't they? It was like 20 odd goals better than the goals against expectation. And they've sold, mentioned him already, James Trafford, to go and sit on the bench possibly at Manchester City. And also they've also lost central defender as well in that. They've also lost Josh Brownhill, who was their top goal scorer. They've not got a lot of firepower. Zian Fleming is the next best there. He kind of limped into double figures for a side that got 100 points to finish second. Not massive. So lots of concerns there. And also Scott Parker's got a lot of points to prove, and I just don't think you'll be able to do it. So something they haven't got that the other two sides have got is that support, the home support. Sunderland and Leeds are both going to have crazy atmospheres, 40,000 fans in their stadium, cheering, roaring them on, giving them that extra boost. And Burnley obviously haven't got that. So that's a bit of a negative there. So I've got them bottom. Sunderland, I've got second bottom. The predictable nature of the fact I'm going on every promoted side going down. I'm going to change that for the last place. But Sunderland, I've been impressed with their business, especially Granit Xhaka, that caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that at all. I was talking Sunderland being inexperienced and probably going to fall short as a result of that. But they made big moves. They've done the have a go option, which fair play. They've spent like £150 million. They've bought a lot of players over £15 million as well, individuals, and brought Xhaka in for that experience. So I think they'll go close to survival. I think again they'll fall just short. Home form is going to be crucial for them. We'll see how it goes. But I have got one of the existing Premier League sides, the established Premier League sides, going down, and it's probably no surprise to people that it's going to be Brentford, who look really up against it this season. Thomas Frank is a massive loss for them. He's been at the club for such a long time. Everything's built around him, his processes, what he wanted, his backroom staff, who he's taken with him as well, most of them. That whole kind of ethos, that whole environment, that culture within Brentford was built around Thomas Frank. So again, it's a bit like a Klopp leaving, although Slot obviously did well to take over that. But the likes of Wenger and the likes of Alex Ferguson going, I think it's that much of a big thing for Brentford to be losing him. And of course, they've also lost their top goal scorer in Mbomo. They've also lost their captain in Norgard, gone to Arsenal, and likely to probably lose Wissa as well. And they haven't really replaced those players yet. And time is ticking, of course. And if they do so, Wissa, then it'll be an even bigger problem. And Keith Andrews, to have zero managerial experience, to come into the Premier League from being a coach, set-piece coach there last season, I just think it's a massive step up, and it's a massive gamble by Matthew Bedham. And I think unlike him, it's possibly a gamble that he's going to lose on this occasion. As things stand, with the transfer market as it stands, and with the setup at Brentford at the moment, I've just got them going down.
Fair enough. I mean, you make good reasoning. I am going for the really boring option of all three promoted teams going down. I'm going for Burnley, bottom of the pile. Again, for all of the reasons that you said, but on top of that, Scott Parker is obviously no stranger to taking a side back down to the Championship. Did it with Fulham and Bournemouth, and I think he'll be adding Burnley to his list, unfortunately for him. I'm going for Sunderland, second bottom. As you mentioned, they've made some good signings, and they are clearly going to have a go. And I don't think they're going to be a side where they're getting touted around in the derby chat that there seems to always be one team each year. I think they'll win some games, they'll draw some games, but they will still ultimately finish in the relegation zone. But have a go doing it. They might play some nice football, and Sunderland fans might not be down and out every week. And then I'm obviously going for Leeds as the third team to go down. I just think the Premier League is so tough for any team to come into these days. And I think all of the established sides now are quite significantly stronger. They have more depth. They're just way more astute at that level. And I think it's really, really hard at the moment for teams to come up and crack that. And it's more that I can't really see any other team going down than it is I can't see any of those three teams staying up. Brentford, as you mentioned, are probably the one team that get closest, but I still think they're going to be too strong to go down, despite, as you say, like losing their manager, losing their best player, and losing their captain. It's not ideal, but I do still think they scrape it and do stay up. So by default, then it has to be the three promoted teams that go down for me. So sorry, Leeds, Burnley, and Sunderland fans. It's back to the Championship, in my opinion. Right, well, that's pretty much it. There are obviously a few teams there that we haven't covered in the middle of the part, but we don't quite have time for that. We'll move on to some of the questions then that we put out a request of on X, and a few people got in touch with some pretty good questions. I think you'll agree, Jack. But we'll start with the first question, which was, who do you think will score more Premier League goals this season, Šeško or Ekitike?
I think it's a really tough question. Really tough question. So a good question. Yeah, well done to whoever posed to that. I don't think there's lots to choose between them. And the thing you got, I think, for me to work out first is how much game time are they going to get? You would suggest that while fit, Šeško is pretty much going to start every single game. Certainly, initially. Looking at it from last season, let's look at, obviously, they're both in the Bundesliga last season, so we've got a fair comparison there. Ekitike got 15 goals to Šeško's 13. Only one penalty for Ekitike, 2 for Šeško. Ekitike's goals, though, come from an expected goals of 21.63, which is the second highest in Bundesliga, only behind Harry Kane. So you would suggest that he was possibly a little bit wasteful. Saying that, he had more shots on target than everyone else apart from Harry Kane. He had 48 shots on target and scored a goal every 172 minutes. Going through Šeško, same numbers, 13 goals, expected goals from 9.56, which is only the 13th highest in the Bundesliga. One problem for Manchester United last season, which we've talked about, is that they created a fair amount of chances but didn't finish them. So if he can even match his expected goals this season, then you would suggest that he's got a very good chance of a decent season as far as his goal scoring is concerned. So only 2 penalties as well, 31 shots on target, which was the 12th highest, and a goal every 184 minutes. So it's a tough one to call, and just going to side with Ekitike because I think that he'll just get more chances in a side that are going to be scoring lots of goals and be challenging right at the top of the table. And I've just got a nagging doubt that Sesko might suffer a little bit of, I'll say, stage fright. He's obviously been playing at a decent side. I don't want to be disrespectful there, but we know the pressures that come at being at Old Trafford, and the weight is on him now to be the guy that scores the goals to fire them up to the dizzy heights of maybe 8th or 9th in the table. But yeah, I feel he might just fall short. So a very, very close call, but I will just go with Ekitike.
Yeah, that's quite nice because I'm going to disagree with you and I'm going to go for Sesko purely because of the game time thing. I think you have to assume, whether Isak comes to Liverpool or not, that Sesko, injuries aside, obviously, will play more Premier League minutes than Ekitike this season. And I think by default, that means he will, potentially score more goals than Ekitike. And I think your chances point is completely valid. Like United obviously didn't create that much in the grand scheme of things last season. But again, with Mbeumo and Cunha coming in, and Fernandes is had the most key passes in the league last season. I do think they'll create a lot more this season. And it's just going to be a case of whether Sesko can put them away. So I think you'll be seeing his XG higher this season than last. And it's just if he can finish it or not. So I'll lean slightly towards Sesko there as scoring more goals than Ekitike. But yeah, as you say, good question. Now, I love this next question because it's so difficult. But I know you've got a few stats on here because we spoke about it off air. But how many of the current managers will be in their job at the end of the season? And who do you think will be the first manager to get sacked? Now, I think I can guess your first manager to get sacked. But we'll go for the how many of the current managers will be here at the end of the season first.
Okay, yeah, I like this question as well. We can't beat talk about someone losing their job, can we? As a part, and obviously there is a market on it as well. So I had a look around to see what's there. But over the course of the Premier League history, you're looking at roughly 8 clubs changing their manager over the course of the season. Now, in some cases, that is multiple changes, as was the case last season. We saw with Southampton. But there was 8 last season, 9 the season before that, 11 in 2022-23, which was the most since 1994-95, when there was 14 of the 20 clubs to change their manager during the course of the season. Looking at the bookmakers' odds to get a rough idea as to where we think this might come this time round. Sides that have the managers under pressure. Keith Andrews is the favourite to be the first manager sacked, then Daniel Farke, then Scott Parker, and then Nuno Espirito Santo. And who do you think I'm going to go for to be the first one sacked?
I think it's going to be Keith Andrews, isn't it?
No, I'm going with Scott Parker.
Oh, wow.
I'm going with Scott Parker. Yeah. Look, Keith Andrews is the favourite, but he's been brought in. And I don't think Brentford are the sort of side that are going to make a knee-jerk reaction and sack him that quickly. Erik ten Hag broke the mould last season. He was the first non-newly promoted side manager to get sacked, say first in the season for the first time in 5 seasons. So it's generally one of the newly promoted trio. And looking at that, Regis Lebris has just signed a new contract. I can't see Sunderland not finishing the season with him. So I think they've kind of got it. It's going to be very tough this season. What happens. And then if they do go down, then they'll want to come back with him in charge, and then the pressure will be on. But if he keeps them up, expect a statue to be built straight away. But yeah, Scott Parker is the one for me. He's obviously got form for it. He disappeared from Bournemouth in August. His last appearance in the Premier League, having said he wasn't supported in the transfer market, and the level of the squad was nowhere near good enough to survive. Then Iriola come in and took them up to about 12th, so that didn't work out so well. So yeah, he's the one that I'd fancy. As an outsider, given the problems they've had in close season and the Isak situation, I think Eddie Howe is a possibility. The only concern with that is that the owners there may be not looking to kind of spend money on a compensation package and that. But so I've looked through the list. I'd probably say that there's 7 bulletproof managers, being Slot, Emery, Moyes, Thomas Frank, Fabian Hurtzler, Iriola, and Regis Lebris. And the others have, for one reason or another, got possibilities of a risk attached to them. But yeah, for me, if I'm going to put my neck on the line, Scott Parker.
Yeah, nice. I looked at Scott Parker too. I've looked at the betting market with Oddschecker, and I've gone for. I didn't want to go at the top of the market, so I've gone for Graham Potter.
Okay.
He's 11-1 to be the first manager to face the sack. Now, I mean, there's no two ways about it. West Ham were poor last season. It was very disappointing for them, and obviously they got rid of Lopetegui. Probably held on for him a little bit too long, if you speak to West Ham fans, and brought Potter in, and he really didn't deliver anything. I think he won 3 Premier League games since he's taken over, which is certainly not lining it up. And I just think he could come under massive pressure if West Ham don't get off to a good start. They obviously sold one of their best players in Kudus to Tottenham. Antonio left up top, although he wasn't providing much. I probably shouldn't really say that, but he's moved on. So I think all eyes really rest on Jared Bowen, and I think if he can't find his scoring boots, then West Ham might start slowly. And I don't know how long West Ham will hold on to Potter, based on the fact that he didn't really turn things around too much at the back end of last season, and he's 11-1. So I think my play there would be Graham Potter. At 11-1. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I understand. No, I don't at all. No, I think you've got to look at in that market, if you want to talk about that, then you want to be looking at owners that are happy to pull the trigger, and obviously they've got history at West Ham that they will do that. Even like Moyes delivering a European trophy, and they wanted something different, and it didn't work out with Lopetegui, and they moved him on. And I think they were expecting bigger and better things from Graham Potter in that first half of the season that he's had. Big start needed here, and if he doesn't get off to a good one, then the pressure will be on. I think they're looking to try and make a couple of moves in the transfer market. I think they definitely need to. So the loss of Kudus is pretty big, but I'd be looking around for those guys that are quite happy to pull the trigger. The likes at Forest, Chelsea, even though Maresca, I think will just always be under pressure, depending on the next sort of 4 or 5 games. If he has a bad run, then we saw it last season where there was murmurings before we turned it around again. So those kind of places. But even a Pep, if he doesn't get off to a good start, is Pep prepared to walk? Maybe. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Right, one last question then before we wrap this up. I'm intrigued by my team, Villa, strangled by PSR, but haven't lost a significant player in this offseason. Although I don't know him, Evans Gesson looks to be a great addition after some research. A few tipsters rate our chances highly, as you do, clearly. What are your thoughts? We've kind of discussed Aston Villa already, but anything else to add, or any comments on Evans Gesson?
No, I don't know much about him either, to be fair. It's someone I'm going to have to do a little bit digging into, and be interested to see, as we touched, like, they've still got Emi Martinez there. So where we're going to go with that? It's surprised to still see him there, but we'll see how the season starts, whether we need to make bigger inroads into our looking into that one. I'll touch on Emi Buendia as a real wild card for them coming back in. It'll be cliche time, like a new signing for them. So I've seen him when he's on fire, and I've seen him with his link up with a striker, and if he can get that same understanding, which I've seen a couple of times in, like, so you talked about Watkins scoring in every pre-season game, he's going to be very, very prolific if that working relationship with Buendia flourishes, and I think it could well do, and he'll be excellent in that role. And so Emery, they've got a stunning manager. They have been a bit strangled in the transfer market. I think they're looking to try and make their own kind of funds available. I talked about Ramsey going. So, I like them. We've talked about it. We both agree that they're going to be challenging right at the top there, top 5. Can they break the top 4? Maybe a little step too far. But no, I'm very confident on Villa having a very, very good season again. So, and I liked them in that opener against Newcastle. I think they could put a statement there with the way Newcastle are coming into it. I think Villa could really put a statement out there that they're forced to be reckoned with. Home game, certainly. Yeah,
absolutely. I completely agree. Now, I realise there's actually a couple of questions that I never asked you, and I'll give you a chance to answer it now. It's one question, really. Who is your dark horse / surprise package this season?
Well, I think judging by your reaction to it, I'm quite confident on Brighton doing well. So I'd classify them as a dark horse to burst into that kind of top 6 place. I agree with you. Tottenham will do a lot better than they did last season, and maybe not quite as confident as you are in how high they go up, and probably a surprise package maybe going the other way, I'd possibly look at Nottingham Forest having a big regression this season as a side that I don't think they'll go down, but I think they could well find themselves in the lower reaches of the table, given the European commitments that they've got this season and given their massive overperformance last season by way of taking their chances and say expected goals, etc., in their defensive process. So that'd be the side I'd possibly be looking for as a surprise package going the other way.
Nice. My surprise package is a team we haven't actually spoken about yet, and it's Everton. I think Everton might have a strong season this year. I think signing Jack Grealish is a great pickup for Everton. Like we're obviously talking about a side here who are pretty astute defensively with Branthwaite, and Tarkowski was the highest rated centre back in the league last season. I think they kept the second or third most clean sheets last season. Pickford is obviously pretty strong in goal, and they'll have that core backline again this season. But the area that they did struggle in last season is going forward, and I think adding Jack Grealish, who, as we know, on his day is top class and can cause defense so many issues. So I think putting him in the 10 there is going to unlock a lot of doors for Everton. And I quite like the signing of Tieno Barry. Now I know he's quite young, 22, and from Villarreal, but he scored 11 goals and 4 assists in 25 starts in La Liga last season. Now I think adding that to a team, and even if he doesn't hit the same numbers, he will add some goals and he'll be a threat for Everton. So David Moyes as well, like a great Premier League manager. He knows what he's doing. He's got loads of experience. I think Dewsbury Hall as well is a half decent signing. Maybe even if he doesn't start every game, I don't know. I think when I say surprise package, I just think it'll be a steady improvement on last season. I'm not necessarily saying they get up towards
top half.
I think top half. I think maybe 10th if I really had to put a number on it. I think a good season for just top half.
Obviously, the key thing you're not mentioning it, but I think the key thing there, and I agree with all those points, and I think they could well do exactly what you've now said. O'Brien, as well as that other part of that defensive setup that was really, really, really strong, and we know Moyes can get those sides set up in that manner. They've got lots to like in that part of the pitch, and as you say, they just needed to have some magic dust down the other end. Grealish obviously brings that. If he can get anywhere near the levels he got to Aston Villa, then absolutely is a stunning signing. It's a great pickup on loan. Let's think this is a £100 million player from a couple of seasons ago. It's a brilliant pickup, great piece of business. And you mentioned him up top as well. But I think Beto proved last season that he could be a handful and score goals when he's in the right frame of form. But he's now got that competition up there, and I think Ndiaye has shown that he is again a top talent as well. So I think they've now got those pieces, those match winners at the top end of the pitch. The key thing is how they're going to settle in their new home. Goodison Park was obviously such a fortress for them over the years. They've got to make sure they hit the ground running there and not make it a question, which we've seen with other clubs before. So as long as they can do decent at home, then I think, and you got to hope that beautiful stadium is going to bring the best out of these players and those big name players that we now talked about. The likes of Grealish will want to go and perform on that kind of stage. And I think David Moyes is a great manager to get something out of players that have got a bit of a point to prove. And you talked about Dewsbury Hall and Grealish there, two key players that are exactly that. So I think there's a lot to like about Everton this season. And if hope they can just get off to a good start in that new home of theirs.
Yeah, for sure. I think the points proof thing is so true for Jack Grealish. I mean, obviously because he didn't really get a look in last season, but he's already mentioned that he wants to be going to America next summer with England for the World Cup, and that's why he's taking this move to go and prove to Thomas Tuchel that he is worth it and that he's the right man for picking for that squad. So.
And do you know what? Even the small thing that he's taken the Wayne Rooney shirt and he's mentioned that. As part of it is like, do you know what? That could have gone. He could have took another number. He could have even a small thing like that is showing you his mindset, and that he's like, I'm going to this club. I'm going to mention their prodigal son, and I want to be talked about in the same breath as him, and I'm going to take the mantle on of wearing that shirt number. So I think that is hang on, he's meaning business here. So very, very much looking forward to him getting game time and showing what he's all about. So yeah, very exciting.
Yeah, me too. Right, I think that brings us to a close then for our 2025-2026 Premier League preview. Thanks very much for joining me, Jack. And thanks very much to anyone who's watched or listened. We'll hopefully be back throughout the season. But until then, be sure to check out WhoScored.com for all of your stats, not only on the Premier League, but across all of the leagues that you might want stats for. Enjoy the football, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.